In order to do this initial exercise, you will need to have 3 drawings, and we're going to take these and place them at different angles to see how the light hits the surface of these things and how that creates different shadows and different highlights depending on where they are placed in relation to the light source that you are working with. What I've done is cut these apart so these would all be separate because we will need to use them in a separate format. The next thing that we have to do is create axes on which to place these individual forms. So I'm going to first start with a vertical axis, then create a horizontal axis. We know that's going to be 90 degrees. And then we're going to create a 45-degree angle. And you can more or less eyeball. It's not going to matter that much if you're off. If you want to use a compass, you can do that, but you don't really need to. So now we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 axes on which to put our forms. So I'm going to do the cone first, and I'm going to place it on this vertical axis first. Tape it down with a couple pieces of tape. On a separate sheet of tracing paper, or copy off. I'm using a 4H pencil. Carefully drawing off the cone onto my tracing paper. Now what I want to be careful of is I want to make sure that this tracing paper does not move around. So I'm going to tape it on one end so that I can lift it. Now I will do this again. Try to position this pretty much the same distance that I had it here to here, and I will tape this back down. Of course, the center of the cone is always facing the center of this axis that I've drawn. Now that I have that one in place, I will do the horizontal. Again, very carefully draw off my cone. And I will continue to do this until I have cones drawn for every axis on the base sheet. And I will continue to do this till I have all of these done. Here we have 8 cones, all in different directions. What I'm going to do next is I am going to make these cones open-ended so that we can see how the light affects the inside if we had an open-ended cone, and see what the light does to those areas as well as the outside. Now you can create the cone with the opening in the beginning and transfer it all at the same time. You don't have to do it the way I've done it here. Okay, so what do we think we have to do at this point? You can work on tracing paper, that will be fine. We don't need this foundation sheet any longer. We can now take our tracing paper off of its pad so we can move it around a little. And we can take this foundation piece off as well, because we may want to use that again for a different shape. Now what we have to think about? First of all, we have to think about the fact that the light is coming from over the left shoulder. So we will start by, first of all, figuring out where our highlights are going to be. So from this direction, our highlight is going to be pretty much standard the way it was in the vertical position. So I would put it to the left of center. That's going to be our highlight area. This one is going to be pretty much, even though it's horizontal, it's going to be pretty much in the same position. Now, as we come around this way, the angle of the light hitting this cone is going to be different from the way it was here. Now it's going to come down and hit closer to the center, but to the right on the cone. Here even more. And as we come around here, it'll still be to the right. And now, as it's changing direction because of the curve, we are going to see the highlight moving again to the other side of the cone. But because the cone has moved, the light hasn't moved, and so it appears that the light looks different on the cone, which it does. All right, so here we go. Here, this looks right. Here, the light is on the bottom side of this curve. On the bottom. Now it starts to get closer to the center again and to the upper side of the cone, just like it is upper here on this side of the cone. And as you can see, it also tapers. But here now we're really seriously seeing this highlight in a different position, in a different position, in a different position. So the next thing we have to determine is, where is the darkest shadow? So in this case, it's always opposite the highlight. So we know the darkest shadow is going to be here, 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 here. And you can see the shadow changes as it goes around the circle. Now again, because these cones are to the right, the shadow in these areas here, because this, if we would look at it as an overall form, we know that our shadows are going to be darker on these sections of the inside of the cones, and as they get around to this side, they get lighter. But then you also have the factor of the highlight, where the highlight is, and where the dark areas are